Hi, everyone. I'm delighted to be back with another episode of Be Limitless. Last time, we uncovered insights from a leading real estate player, DLF. Today, we feature the largest QSR player in India, Domino's. And by the way, that's the largest selling pizza globally. Just to give you a little flavor, the QSR industry became known actually with the launch of an outfit called Automat in New York City in 1912. Domino's came in a bit later in 1960, and it was started by the two brothers, Tom and James Monahan. They didn't have a very good childhood, they had a tough childhood, and they were very determined to do something on their own. They started in Michigan with one outlet. They bought an outlet, small pizza outlet called Dominic's. And very quickly after that, bought two more in the same county. And some people say there are three dots in the Domino's logo, and perhaps they wanted to keep on adding dots, which they did, and they became pizza moguls across the world. So I'm delighted today to invite Sandeep Anand, who is the EVP and CMO for Domino's India, to talk to us. Welcome, Sandeep. Great to see you.
Hi, Sangeeta. Thank you so much for having me here. It's lovely to have this conversation with you.
And thank you for your time, Sandeep. What strikes me about your business is that it's a here and now business. You make, you ship, you eat, and perhaps all gone in a little more than 22 minutes, which is what you promised the consumer. So you have the shortest order to consumption cycle, right? And I know that, like me, you believe that CMOs are chief growth officers. So it would be very interesting to get your perspective on the role of the CMO in what we used to call the QSR industry, but I think you started calling it the food aggregator, food aggregation industry.
Yeah, food tech industry.
Yeah, food tech industry. Okay, I stand corrected. Yeah.
No, so Sangeeta, I think there are huge similarities in the two roles, the traditional, or say the FMCG industry and the new age industries like consumer tech. There are huge similarities, yet there are huge differences also. If I talk about the role of the CMO in the FMCG space, the primary role of the CMO for sure was keeping for being the custodian of the consumer voice in the business, and also ensuring that all the team members are doing the same. That's the number one and the primary role, because everything starts with what the consumer wants or is likely to want. It's also the role of the CMO to spot those trends much earlier and then convert them into business ideas. So that was the key bucket, I would say, which is actually common across both industries. The second bucket, then specifically for uh, marketing teams and for CMOs, is how to nurture and also uh, stay true to the brand, because brands are built over years. They are not built overnight, and it actually takes small initiatives to build that brand equity. But it's very important that also those small initiatives over the years feed into one brand essence or one voice for the brand. It's very easy, especially in these worlds where often brands change hands. 2 to 3 years down the line, the brand custodian changes, and then it's very easy for brands to lose their way or the way they kind of come across to consumers. So as a CMO, you have to understand what is the core of the brand and ensure that core of the brand guides every decision the marketeer takes with regards to the brand.
Right. Understand. Yeah. And how is it different?
When it comes to, say, consumer tech, I think marketeers possibly give away one big thing which they are in control of in FMCG, the product. Because while a Domino's may be different, because the product is also made and manufactured by Domino's and sold via, say, a consumer tech platform. But in many consumer tech firms, which are specifically aggregators or platforms which bring together many players, the product is the app, and you don't have control over that. It's really the product team which kind of leads the development and the design of that app. So for a marketer in a consumer tech world, yes, the traditional ask of driving traffic or bringing in consumers is the same. Just like in FMCG, you need to bring consumers to the outlet or the shelf and then make them buy. That's the same task here. You have to feed into the funnel of the app or get people into the store in our case. The big
Right.
difference is that app then is maybe someone else's baby, and you have an influencing role in terms of how do you design or how do you get that product to be consumer facing. And a lot of the insights of the consumer work actually should feed into a lot of consumer journeys which have been made on the app. The second big difference versus FMCG for me, Sangeeta, is, and CMOs really in the consumer tech world obsess about it. The job does not finish when the consumer has visited or ordered or not ordered. It also is there from a point of view of the post order experience, specifically points of failure. It's very important to bring back those consumers who have either lapsed out or have not been coming back frequently to you. So it all goes into that circle of how do you build the funnel, the top of the funnel. So even the bottom of the funnel or the dropouts at the bottom of the funnel are as important in a consumer tech world versus say an FMCG wherein you kind of get them to try the product and then you let the product do the talking, because you have this one product, and if the experience is not like or not if there's a bad experience, you seldom have a chance to bring the consumer back. Here you can actually, through new age levers like CRM, digital, etc., bring them back, give them a try again, and give them a better experience and win them back. So these are the some of the differences which are there in the consumer tech world.
So, I think the other big one is that you own the entire end-to-end supply chain of make, ship, and deliver and almost consumption, right? So it's got a very short consumption cycle. You own everything from manufacture to the consumer, whereas most FMCG and a lot of other businesses follow a distributed model of distribution. So you make a product and then you hand it out. Even the service industry quite often. But in your case, I think one of the things you mentioned is what's very important is that you make sure that you have a mechanism to always deliver the same great quality that you promise, which is not necessarily coming off a machine.
Yes.
So if I'm producing something on an equipment, it's somewhat easier for me to ensure that I get the same output, provided I'm putting in the same ingredients. You remember our conversation about salami tactics. But but in your case, it's a lot of training. It's a lot of, so there's a whole host of complexity to your business, which is again, how does that impact the role of the CMO?
Uh, See, it's a very good question, and I would say this is a unique challenge which probably a Domino's would face. Not many other consumer tech firms face it. Each of Domino's pizzas is handmade and freshly made when an order comes in.
Wow.
So
Okay.
there is so that all that magic happens in that 30 minutes we kind of take to deliver you the pizza right from the time the order lands on our table.
Right.
Now, given that we have a network of 1400 plus stores and each of the pizzas are handmade, you can imagine it can vary from store to store, even within the store, from person to person within the store.
Right.
That is where training comes in, and that is where the handshake between, I would say, the marketing team who conceptualize the product and figure out how it should be made and detailing out each step. The marketing team does that, and the training team
Wow.
then imparts it to 1400 stores in a manner that it's almost becomes muscle memory. That's the trick to actually delivering great pizzas consistently across any Domino's outlet. So ideally, if you eat a pizza in Delhi or if you eat a pizza in Chennai, if it's the same pizza, you should have the same experience, same taste, and same flavors bursting into your mouth.
Right, right. I know that other smaller QSR outfits have not had such a great experience with that because, I mean, given the fact that, you also know what's the level of training, skills, education, etc. that's available in India. So it's not always easy to implement that. So hats off to you for doing that. Would you like to talk quickly about same store sales growth, which is a very important QSR parameter and different from perhaps FMCG?
Yes. So in FMCG, actually, you measure the whole growth and you actually then keep on adding stores. Distribution is the key KPI which the sales team has. Here, we also add on a lot of stores. So Domino's has become from 100 outlets in around 2000 to now 1,400 plus outlets. We have a massive rate of expansion of stores, and even future plans are very aggressive. But the core metric for growth for us is also the same store growth, not the additional sales which is coming out of the new stores, because see, that's a benchmark of how we are growing the core of the business, because that's really organic growth rather than inorganic. And that is something which we track, and that's influenced by multiple factors. That's the end metric really, but there are also other factors or metrics which we track which lead to same store growth. One is again in terms of how are we feeding the top of the funnel? How many app downloads are we driving? What is the brand saliency which is leading to top of mind for consumers and therefore driving traffic? So this is the top of the funnel metric which we kind of track rigorously. The second one is the conversion. Once a person has landed onto our app, how many of them are actually converting? Is the conversion going up or down? And how is it factoring out? The third one, which we just talked about, quality. We have a very robust mechanism of getting consumer feedback. Practically each order is accompanied by a feedback form or a feedback link, which our consumers thankfully are very they are very forthcoming in terms of good and as well as bad feedback, which helps us improve. And we take it very seriously. NPS for us is something which is a standard in terms of how we are delivering to the customer. Because at the end of the day, if we can conceptualize great pizzas, we can think that the research tells us that these are great pizzas. But at the end of the day, if those great pizzas are not being replicated in the store, everything falls flat. So quality for us is very important. And these top of the funnel, conversion and quality, these three actually dictate what same store growth is about.
Top of the funnel and the conversion, right?
And the quality of the product, which is the real moment of truth.
Yeah, right. So there was a very interesting thing that I read that you launched a Hindi version of your app. Yes. How did that do for you?
Hindi version of the app which we launched was basis consumer feedback in terms of I prefer to converse or even transact in an app language, which is my colloquial language.
Sure.
That was the genesis of it. And I think it's just the first step. There are many Indias, there are many languages. So we have started on that journey. We are now popularizing the Hindi app really. And we are getting some encouraging responses, but I would say we are early in the journey. I was saying that there are many examples, and Google and Facebook have kind of told us, and with the growth of the vernacular app platforms and even which is the equivalent of Twitter in Hindi, these are all evidence of how vernacular apps or non-English apps have a role to play in the consumer life. So we are on the right journey. I think it will take some time for us to kind of maximize that vernacular play.
Right. So you're in many cities across the country, right? So it makes absolute sense actually to pick the next set of 6-7 languages. Google has 14 at the moment, isn't it?
We are in 300 plus cities.
300 plus cities. Yeah, that's a huge number. Yeah.
It makes sense for us to have that kind of a play.
Okay. No, that's wonderful to hear. So that's obviously one great way of growing is having the app in different languages. I noticed, Sandeep, and I was looking at some financial data across various QSRs in India. And I noticed that in the financial year 2021, which was mainly a COVID year, because 3/4 of the way through March 20, COVID started and India more or less shut down. Your business didn't decline too much. So we know what happened to footfall. We know what happened to all the retail doors. They were shut. Your business declined maybe 10-15%. I've seen some other data where companies lost 30-35-40% of their top line. In fact, I was amazed that you actually increased the number of outlets during that year of COVID by 136, if I've got my numbers right. And I wanted to ask you, how did you guys manage to do that?
Okay, so there are two sides to the story. I think I'll start with what happened. COVID obviously impacted us also as badly as many of the other players. Specifically, given that we are not just an app business, we have a huge brick and mortar business in the form of stores.
Right.
Uh, there were restrictions, and the dine-in business was really impacted badly.
Right.
The core of our business is also employees, and of course, we kept the safety of the employees paramount. And we took some time after the initial COVID lockdown to come back with store operations being up and running again. That was a very conscious call on our part in terms of just get things in order, ensure that the safety of the employees are in place, and etc. So our business was impacted. But I think what really helped us tide over this were two things. One, we had started to prepare for COVID sometime in Feb itself, even when it was in India, still being talked about as something which is happening in some other faraway country.
Right.
And possibly the realization that it will come to India one day had not sunk in yet to people. So when it struck in March, we were very, very prepared. And it was also because we were closely coordinating with the other Domino's franchisees across the world, specifically the China
Right.
one. And we knew the enormity of what
Right.
it can be. So
Right.
we were very prepared. We were the first one to launch zero contact delivery. We were the first one to actually mandate masks and gloves in store, even when the government mandate had not come. We had already started.
Wow. Okay.
We had
Okay.
already put in place all safety precautions. So, and we had also started to communicate that to consumers. And I remember getting that feedback from some people. Why is Domino's talking about all this? It's happening in China. It's yes,
Okay.
and it was some sort of that thing. And people were asking sometimes in the store, the store employees, that why are you wearing a mask? But
Really? Okay.
yes, it happened sometime because we, as I said, we started in Feb itself to prepare for this.
Yeah.
And even before the government announced it, we had kind of mandated it within the stores and for our
And
employees.
you, Sandeep, apparently changed guard during the period, right? You were on
Yes,
the other side.
yes.
You were
I
in
was on the,
Zomato.
yes, I was on the other
And
side. So
yeah.
I was also watching it, and I was honestly in awe in terms of the speed and the head start which Domino's had. It
Right.
honestly was something which was inspiring for me being on the other side also. And definitely that held us in good stead because people remembered it.
Right.
People associated us as the champions of safety. So that helped us in one way because it built trust. And all of us know during these times, people have kind of gravitated towards brands which had more trusted brands.
Sure.
So Domino's won that mind share game, I would say. The second one is delivery. The business pivoted, the entire industry business pivoted from dine-in to
Right.
delivery.
Right.
We as a brand are very strong in delivery, in the the delivery process per se. Also the infrastructure. Our app has a very strong download pace, and we have a very high number of monthly active users, etc. So we also had all the infrastructure in place for the consumers to easily shift to us on delivery, and our delivery business and our takeaway business kind of grew manifold and took a large bit of an impact of the dine-in away.
Right.
That was one of the key reasons why we managed to navigate this. To your last question of the stores, I think it was again a repivoting. So see, food courts, corporate stores, etc., which are high volume stores, were shut during this period for obvious reasons.
Mm.
But at the same time, demands in residential areas and other pockets which possibly needed a one store was actually galloping. So in the same area, you potentially now needed two stores. because
Yeah.
you had so much demand coming in.
Yeah. उसका reason आपको मालूम है ना? The boys weren't going to work. You were all on your own steam, yeah. Suddenly the household had no help. So
That's true, Sangeeta, but even that continued towards, say, the October to December quarter of last year, when things were more in
okay,
line with house helps being in place, etc.
okay,
But people had got into that habit, people had got into that comfort, and we saw booming of residential demand, because of which we opened more stores in areas where we were
okay.
seeing demand being unserviced by us.
I see. Okay, no, that's wonderful. And I must tell you, how the app really helps, because they're two of your pizzas. We love them. So all you have to do, you have to go back and just reorder whenever you want to. It's a 5-minute job.
Lovely, lovely.
So yeah, so that's how I guess it also works. There were one or two other things, Sandeep, you had mentioned. Because I had you were one of the things you'd mentioned was team resilience, and you had laddered that to the DNA of the organization and the way the teams are handled. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
See, Domino's as I think from an employee strength point of view, is a huge team. Runs into, I think, 30,000+ employees, and bulk of them are on the ground in the stores, etc. Their resilience is actually what helped us tide through this business, because the COVID impact was for all of us, not just a select
Right.
few. Even those people who were working on this in the stores knew that there is a COVID pandemic out there, but still they came into the store day on day, delivered the
Wow.
customer need of hot and fresh pizzas. And I would attribute this a lot to the spirit of Domino's. There are many employees. We are a consumer tech, food tech player, but we are also very different that way, because we have employees who have long tenures here. People who have grown in the system from being a delivery boy to now a store manager or a manager of a cluster of stores. So there are
Okay.
many people like that in the system, and these people actually hold the Domino's business very sacred and sacrosanct. And for them, it's a matter of, I would say, heart rather than mind. That spirit actually helped us tide through this pandemic, and that's what I call as the DNA. For going to the store, keeping the store operational, servicing the consumer, especially in this time when they needed us, is what is the DNA. And that's a service-led DNA has been always a part of the Domino's culture, even prior to that. That's why we were able to pull off a 30-minute delivery way back in early 2000, when no one had actually thought about a 30-minute delivery as a promise.
Right.
So it's the service DNA of the organization which places consumer first. That's really helped us. And the fact that people have been in the system for long, that they have internalized it. That's the other reason why it runs across layers.
So I know, I think that's an amazing story. So the fact that the employees are respected, their careers are taken care of, they obviously enjoy working there, because it's unusual in this day and age to find people who've been there 10, 15 years, and they're there every day when there's danger. They're there at work every day to do their bit, and as you said, they work from their heart, not their head. So it just sort of highlighted to me, the values of the organization, which I think are enunciated as agility, consumer centricity, bold decision making, quality focus, and innovation. And that sort of brought me to another question for you, Sandeep. In what ways is Domino's being limitless in its thinking with respect to product, delivery, the future? Would you like to talk about that? Technology, actually.
You kind of covered everything which I was going to say about. So see, when being limitless, if I talk about from a Domino's perspective, I think there is one line which summarizes the thought, and then there are various work streams or themes coming out of it. Actually, that one line is being the first in many things. So Domino's, when it comes to being limitless, our endeavor is to be the first in many things with respect to the consumer. We are the first in terms of bringing pizzas to India. And I'm talking about some of the past things and some of the future things also I'll talk about.
Sure.
So we were the first to bring pizzas to India. We were the first ones to bring 30-minute delivery to India. We were the first ones to have a value play in terms of Pizza Mania, etc. That range of value pizzas which we have. Even today, after 25 years, moving from one store in 96 to 1400 plus stores in 2021, that being a first in many areas as a theme kind of continues. We have recently moved from a 30-minute to a 20-minute delivery in many of our stores. You must have read in some news articles. Again, 20-minute delivery is the first. And delivery experience is one of the key vectors of the category. In terms of when it comes to our value play, we have, while we have a sufficient base in terms of our value segment, we are innovating and we are coming up with newer and newer innovations. We came up with a zingy parcel in the past. We have basically come up with burger pizzas. We have come up with many value items which have really helped give them consumers a plethora of options when it comes to value. So Domino's, while being considered a premium brand, also has a very strong value for money equity, which is seldom seen in premium brands. And there was a third one.
And a large innovation, I think you mentioned.
Yes,
and
yes.
you mentioned that, we have to space out our innovation. We have so much in the pipeline. That is amazing.
That's true. So see, one of the vectors of being limitless for a pizza brand like Domino's in India is also the Indianization.
Right.
And so it's kind of a balancing act between having that international part of the cuisine menu and also the Indian part of the menu. And therefore, when you operate with those two vectors in mind, you have a good problem of plenty where you kind of space out your innovations. But yes, being limitless for us is about also innovating at speed, failing fast, learning fast, and then moving on also. The last one, which I think, Sangeeta, I want to talk about is technology, which you also mentioned. Many a times, specifically for QSR, you stop at food as the innovation, but there's a huge play in technology as an innovation. And if I give you an example, a 20-minute to 30-minute delivery would have been only possible with many technology interventions. Tomorrow, if we offer something better, or that would be always in today's day and age be led by technology. So being limitless for us is also going to be use the latest technology and enabling a better consumer experience led by better operational efficiencies.
Yeah. So there were three things under technology which really stood out for me when we had a conversation. One was that you developed the app 3-4 years ago, I think, before anybody else was. Again, you were a first in terms of development. You also mentioned that when an order gets placed, you can track it through technology to the cook, to the time, to the person who's going to deliver it, to its delivery route and the time that it's got delivered. So tech sort of takes over. So you have insight into each and every order, and that's huge. I mean, that's really a lot of information, but a lot of access to control in terms of quality, time, what is happening in the company. And the third aspect, which please talk to us about, was you mentioned technology has enabled you to provide consumers with access with feedback, which is very difficult. I so many times as a consumer, I want to feedback to a company about something, and I just struggle to figure out where to do it. But you said that, and I'd love you to talk about that, please.
So see, points of failure, as I mentioned in the beginning, also are points of possibly making a loyal consumer, how you tackle that points of failure. Right. Many a times, and I've seen this as consumers, we have made it difficult for the consumer to even reach out to the company or the organization when you have to register a complaint. We have two modes. We have a call center where they can kind of call up and give a complaint. We also have enabled it through the app itself. So there's a chatbot wherein you can just go and automatically register a complaint. Actually, the backend registers the complaint once you have told them what happens through a set of menu options which are there. So it's like at max a 30-second interaction with the chatbot, and you can register your complaint. And we have very strict TATs, turnaround times, which have been prescribed in terms of resolution of complaints. One of the key KPIs of the store manager and the central team is to ensure most complaints are resolved between 24 to 48 hours. That's something which is tracked. Open complaints are tracked. But really, the front end of it, of registering complaints via chatbot or at a click of a button, is all about letting the consumer know we are here for you. In case there's a problem, please let us know. Our endeavor is to deliver you the best experience, and in case we don't do that, please give us another chance, because we will win you back.
So before we close, Sandeep, there are two things that I wanted you to speak about. One was you promised somebody pizzas for life, and that obviously wasn't me. And the other is the Haath Badhao campaign, which I think really spoke to a nationalistic sort of flavor, very attuned to what was happening in the country at that time.
So, Sangeeta, I'll talk about the second one first, which is the Haath Badhao campaign. It's something which is close to my heart also. But I think it's necessary for you to know how it came into being. It was a period which was tough for every Indian. I think most of us were impacted in some way or the other, either immediate or distant family members or friends were impacted during the second wave. The mood was of slightly gloom and doom. And since we reach out to consumers on a regular basis, we could get that as a feedback. Also, at the same time, consumers were voicing out that they kind of wanted a ray of hope, and they wanted some sort of a good news on the horizon to kind of get them to cheer up. We as a brand wanted to be authentic. During those times, it's not about hard sell, it's about connecting with the consumer and being salient by just connecting with the consumers with stuff which is actually close to their heart, or which is actually talking to them directly. So it was a very conscious call on the brand side to pick up the pulse of the consumer, convert it into a way which can actually show them a ray of hope and voice out their feelings and give them a hope. We intentionally stayed away from kind of hard selling Domino's as a brand or the pizzas as a product. That is where the genesis of the Haath Badhao campaign was. Now, that ray of hope which we identified was vaccination. It was still early stages of vaccinations. There were still some people were saying you get vaccinated, some people wanted a wait and watch kind of a thing. And for us, it was very clear that vaccination is possibly the only way out of this scenario. And that is where we said India as a country has always risen or come together whenever challenged. We saw that in the second wave, people helping out each other. And that's what we wanted to showcase to the world, that there has been a positive side to it also. People have come together. And that ray of hope is vaccination. Please go out and get yourself vaccinated. We even said that, okay, from our side, there's a small gift for you if you get vaccinated. The intent was to also show that we as a brand are committed to it, and we also have skin in the game. We got very positive responses from it, although internally there were a huge debate at this. Is this Domino's? This was very different versus what Domino's had done in the past. But it was received very well. And as you said, it kind of caught the fancy of, or it caught the national mood, really, I would say.
So and very positively presented. No, it says Haath Badhana Aata Hai.
Yes.
It's not about a
brand.
It's not about saying ki kuch karo. It's about hum aise karte hai, so why don't you get vaccinated? I think very nicely done.
And all of us had just done that. All of us had actually even coordinated medicines or hospital beds for people who were not known to us at all. So it was all fresh in the memory. And we just said that that's a positive notion we'll take forward. So that worked well for us. It was well received and helped us connect with a difficult time with the consumer. The second one was on a more happy note, I would say. India had just won its first medal in the recent Olympics. And Mirabai Chanu gave an interview to talk about that she wanted to eat pizzas after this long absenteeism from pizzas because of her training schedule. I think it came out of two things. The first and foremost was that feeling of being proud of her, and that India had won this medal because of her. That was the first overwhelming feeling. And the second feeling was actually feeling elated that she had thought about a pizza, and if we as a pizza brand don't do it, who else will do it? So 15 minutes and we had decided that we'll actually go ahead and give her pizzas for life. We didn't stop there. We actually that very day at her home in Imphal, we delivered pizzas to her family the same very night.
Amazing.
Just a nugget. We actually tried if we could deliver pizzas to her in the Olympic Village in Japan, but we could not because there were some restrictions from the Olympic Committee. Otherwise, that was a real effort made from our side. We contacted our Japan team and tried to get it delivered there also. But when she was back, the day she was back, we treated her to a big pizza dinner, and she really loved it. Kudos to her. She reciprocated our love, and she really loved the fact that she was treated with the Domino's pizza range, and even her family. That we got a fantastic response from her too.
Yeah. Sandeep, it's just been an amazing conversation, and thank you so much for being here. And if you don't mind, I'll just mention a couple of things just for our viewers and listeners. I know that you mentioned to me that Domino's purpose and future ambition is to be the largest food tech brand. I stand corrected. Yeah, the largest food tech brand in India, and in that journey you have taken other steps. I just want to summarize to say that part of being limitless, which I've seen in our conversation today, it's about being consumer centric and being limitless with respect to being consumer centric. So you go all the way to closing a complaint very quickly, encouraging the complaint. Actually, it's so easy to complain, right? So you always want a satisfied consumer, even though it's a very tough business. In terms of product innovation, in terms of value innovation, in terms of technological leaps that you've made to stay ahead of the game, right? And that's clearly put you ahead of the game. And I want to also mention the fact that there's speed and agility demonstrated top and bottom of the organization, and thought leadership by the senior leadership of the company, demonstrated through committed employees at the front end of the business. I think those are all examples of how being limitless can keep you miles ahead of the game, right?
True.
So my heartiest congratulations to you.